Thank you very much for joining all the participants for today's webinar. I am Tariq Nizami, the founder and CEO of a CEO Club Network Worldwide. Today's CEO Club webinar is a part of series by experts insight on how CEOs or business leaders play a crucial role and share the strategies that drive action to lead the effectively through this pandemic. And today, CEO Club exclusive webinar topic is successful leadership in times of uncertainty by our valuable member and a very good friend, Professor Christopher Ibrahim, who is the CEO and head of Dubai campus and Senior Vice President of SP Jain School of Global Management. SP Jain is one of the top executive education institutions in the world. I say the true leader has the confidence to stand alone, courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the need of others. He or she does not set out to be the leader, but becomes one of the equality of his or her actions and integrity of the intent that shows the leadership. In today's session, I think we will know how to use cutting edge insight from neuroscience, positive psychology, and historical case studies. This exclusive session will focus on how we can look at our leadership in the challenging times like these, how to address the anxieties of our team, how to communicate, how to innovate, how to prepare ourselves for this uncertain future. A leader, I would say, is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way, especially in the time like this current situation. So I think I want to, say that we have a very perfect person today as a presenter and a speaker, Professor Christopher, who is an expert in multiple areas, which I will say that he will talk about. You will know how his expertise is. But if you have any questions, so after his presentation, there will be a Q&A session. So I will recommend that if anybody have, please in the chat box, write your questions, and Professor Christopher will be happy to answer each and every question at the end of this session. So now let's hear from Professor Christopher. So over to you, Professor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nizami, and good afternoon, everybody. Ramadan Kareem. I hope you're staying safe and blessed. It's been a wonderful privilege to meet all of you on this digital platform. And for the next 60 to 80 minutes, I'll take you through a journey of hope, a journey of science, and a journey that will help us to understand our current circumstances and plan ahead for a brighter, better future for us, for our corporates, for our families, and for the entire global community. You might think this is nice to hear, but is there a science behind it? Well, we'll wait and watch to see how it works. I, for one, many of you probably would get carried away by a professor thinking, okay, he's going to be a teacher, which means too much of theory and concepts. Well, I like a lot of you, I am a corporate guy, and people like us jumped into academia by choice. So for the last 34 years, I've been in and out of the corporate world. I still have a very close connection with the corporate world. We do a lot of strategy consulting assignments, executive education assignments, corporate training, corporate research. And not only that, I myself am an entrepreneur like a lot of you. We run a state-of-the-art recording theater in South India, and which currently, of course, is closed for COVID. But our clients are waiting, so it's going to be better times, and we're looking at doubling the business once things start. 34 years professional experience in all kinds of areas. I've worked on launching products to the markets, consumables, consumer durables, lifestyle products, so on and so forth. Have consulted with governments, including the government of Dubai, the Executive Council. I have worked on very interesting assignments with the Nigerian government, with the Kenyan government, with, of course, the World Bank on various projects. So it's a very multifarious experiences, and all the challenges of how you go about in uncertain times has been part and parcel. So without much ado, let me welcome you to the presentation on leadership success in times of uncertainty and anxiety. Now, all of us are familiar, so I'm not going to belabor the point. The next slide tells it all. Now, you can relate to the black person running in the front with the invisible enemy chasing him or her behind. Now, that could be the organization, that could be corporates, that could be individuals like you and me, that could be governments. That's the entire world. And behind that invisible enemy, because it's a microscopic enemy, and we have questions about the future, questions about the economy, questions about health, all kinds of questions that permeate across our consciousness to give us more panic and more anxiety than clarity. Well, there are very interesting green shoots if you are keen enough and if you look hard enough. And probably that will be one of the key takeaways that you would get from this session. What I would also like to tell you is I would like to make it as interactive as possible. So like any good professor, I'll ask you questions. And we don't have the wherewithal to ask everybody to speak. So we will ask you to put those, quickly react to those questions by putting your answers on the chat box. A lot of you already started saying hi and welcome and things like that. So welcome every one of you. And please use the chat box for any questions that I might ask you on and off. Interestingly, we have 3 polls where we would like to take your valued opinions. So the moment I put the poll on, I would humbly request you to quickly participate in the polls, 30 seconds to a minute, and then we'll see the reflections of what you as a community think on some of the very, very critical questions that we are all challenged with at the moment. Now, this is a beautiful graph that has been brought out by the World Economic Forum. And, though some of the outer periphery will look very simple and very small, it pretty much covers the entire world. All kinds of industries, from supply chains to airways, to hospitality, to education, to banking systems, so on and so forth. And currently, we are looking at 6 dimensions. The impact on the workforce, the impact of the coronavirus itself and its spread, looking at a permanent cure and vaccine, which there are a lot of green shoots, but still no full closure, impact on trade and business, impact on travel, and of course, impact on financial markets. So that's going to be a very, very, interesting times, because each of these have interconnections, as we will see in a moment. The whole world is networked, and as a result, something that starts somewhere tens of thousands of miles away or kilometers away has repercussions across the world, whether we like it or not. In fact, global strategist Parag Khanna calls this connectography, where the geography of the world is connected through technologies and networks and platforms. It's inevitable, but we together can also, fight back. The situation in one simple acronym could be VUCA. I'm sure a lot of you are now familiar with VUCA. A few years back when we introduced VUCA, VUCA has been there for almost 20 years, but none of us took it so serious. But now VUCA really has gained significance. And as many of you know, VUCA stands for the volatility, the uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Go back in time, just 4 months back when we started the new year, many of us would have celebrated sitting here in Dubai, watching the fireworks, spending time with family and friends. Some of us would have started it with a spiritual beginning, attending churches, places of worship, and praying to God for a bright and blessed new year. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, January 18th to be more precise, we heard this toxic news that there is a very, very serious virus that is going around the world. And a lot of us had no clue what it was. It was volatile, it was uncertain, it was complex because it came from somewhere and it spread pretty much everywhere. And it was ambiguous. While this was going on, oil markets suddenly took a tumble because of glut in the market, oversupply versus demand. And then we found that oil markets became volatile. Thankfully, better sense prevailed, and now they're coming back to some semblances. I wouldn't say normalcy, but bouncing back in the right perspective. But this is one side of volatility, and we are seeing this in markets, we are seeing this in economies, we are seeing this across countries. So that's VUCA for you. If you haven't heard about it, well, welcome to the world of VUCA. But, and that's pretty big enough, in spite of the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, there is a new VUCA that each one of us need to understand, need to embrace, and need to prepare ourselves. So each one of us, and I will later validate how this can be done, with the right vision, I'll tell you what that means, the right understanding, the right clarity, and right agility. Using this VUCA, we definitely should be able to counter the other VUCA. So what do I mean by vision? And later, I will also spend some time on talking about perspectives. Vision is about our outlook about the world. A lot of us read the newspapers. A lot of us watch the television. A lot of us are connected on social media. So we get our news feeds from different sources. The question is, who are those sources? What is the credibility of the source? And what is my reaction to it? So vision is about our outlook, our perceptions of what's happening around. And later, as I said, I will validate what I really mean by this. And that vision gives us either an understanding or a misunderstanding of the situation. If I don't get the right data, if I don't get the right information from the right media, I'm not going to have the right clarity in terms of what it is. Once I have the clear perspective, clear understanding of the circumstances, and clarity of what we need to do, which is again different scenarios, then the speed at which I need to act upon, the immediate requirements, the next requirements, prioritization, so on and so forth. So vision, understanding, clarity, and agility can certainly help us in moving forward to a new, remarkable future that all of us can build, not individually, and you will see later, as a community. Now I would welcome you to look at the polls on the page, okay? And I want your frank opinions on how optimistic you are about the future. So I've got the poll right there, okay? And you can now go to your, poll answers, whether you consider it very optimistic, neither optimistic or pessimistic. I'm just waiting on the sidelines to see it. Pessimistic or very pessimistic, okay? I'll give another few seconds because people are still answering the polls, and then I'll publish it for all our benefit. Right? So that's very interesting. I'm speaking to an amazing crowd. Thankfully, there's nobody who is very pessimistic. God bless all of you. We have 6 to 7% who are saying, I don't know yet, I'm pessimistic. But here's the good news. The very optimistic is 25%. God bless you guys. And optimistic is about 55. So we are talking about a population of 80% who are optimistic or very optimistic. And that, I think, is a very, very exciting sign of things to come. And later we'll validate this with, other factors. So neither optimistic, I mean, you're playing it safe. There's nothing wrong in it. And you can certainly look at how it works. But that's the good news that a lot of us, 76% to 77% of us believe that we can look for hope. And I'd like to welcome you to what
It's interesting that the things we cherish most are the same things we walk right by. They become so intertwined in the status quo that ultimately it becomes impossible to tell them apart from our day-to-day. That is, impossible until things change. Because as it turns out, that thing we call life, it has a say. There's a saying, you never really know what you have until it's gone. And sometimes it takes the most abrasive of reminders, the harshest of times, to help us recapture that perspective, to lift us up and show us what we had previously failed to see. And while our darkest moments test our strength, they push our boundaries, even transform our reality, they can also be the bridge that leads us exactly where we need to be. They remind us that sometimes it's not about how we spend our time, but who we spend it with. That quiet brings clarity, and the world can spin so fast that we forget to think about our place within it. It reminds us how humanity is bigger than the sum of its parts, and it takes just as much energy to build up as it does to tear down. It reminds us that no matter where we live, what we speak, or who we pray to, we're not so different after all. It reminds us that there is so much more good in this world than evil, so much more love than hate, and so much promise for tomorrow. Someday we'll look back on this moment with the lessons we've learned, the hardships we've faced, and we will be reminded of the miracle that is the human spirit, unwavering in its resolve, unbreakable at its foundation, stronger than we could ever comprehend. See, sometimes it's hard to look around and find a reason to be optimistic, to understand or comprehend why. But what we'll find is that if we look hard enough, immersed in the uncertainty, the disruption, and in some cases, the tragedy, there's something to be gained. A tiny candle flickering in the night that will eventually grow to light our way. Because that road to tomorrow is paved with hope. There are pages unwritten, stories untold, and a new chapter to begin.
The message of hope is that we will come back. There is a beautiful candle in that darkness that will ensure that we go back to something better for all of humanity. And that, I think, is the big message that comes out from that video. There's more goodness than evil. There's more power in the human spirit to come together as a community, to come together and create a world that will be better. Yes, there are tragedies. Yes, there are failures. Yes, there are setbacks. But that will not deter us from looking at life from a different perspective and helping us. So here's my first quiz, and I want you to go to your chat boxes and give me the answer as to what you think on this question, that what percentage of the human brain do we actually use? We all have a brain. So the question is, what percentage are we using of the human brain that is with us? And if you can quickly answer this, I'll be very happy. Please start putting the answers on the chat. I'm not seeing any answers. Yes, okay. Okay, somebody's got an interesting answer. I'll come back to that. 5%. Jenabit says, Sai says 2%, 6%. Matthias already knows this, so he's got the answer, but give the answer later. Yes. All right. Salvador says 50%. Sumit says, okay. Some of those guys who have attended my sessions have the right answer, but I'll give you the right answer later. Okay, it's ranging from 1% to very interesting, 15%, 9%. Okay, lovely. Okay, 95%. Cool. Okay. Okay, somebody says 2%. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. This is lovely. Okay, I'm enjoying the participation. Okay. Some of you got it right. Okay, so I had about 3 or 4. Dr. Mustafa says it's 1%. Okay. All right. The real answer is, okay, and we have also been corrupted by Hollywood movies like this, which told us if only Lucy could use 100% of her brain, where would she be? The reality is that we have an awesome, amazing, God-given brain that is used 100% of our time. Okay, so this might sound like a shocker for a lot of us. You don't need to worry, because the common myth, 2% to 10%, 15%, has been there for many years. But you can rest assured that we have an amazing God-given brain. If you can hear what you're hearing, and if you can see what you're seeing and sensing what you're sensing, we have an absolutely amazing brain. And you can Google this after the session is over, okay? You put brain myths, and the first thing that will pop out is this percentage business. So the question is, was our biology teacher wrong? Of course, he or she was wrong, because at that time, neuroscience had not advanced to tell us that this brain is awesome. Now, here's the kicker. Out of that 100%, 90 to 95% is at the subconscious, unconscious level. And that's why I will also introduce you to the science of habits, that as leaders, how do I practice habits which can help me to do a lot of stuff, behaviors, which become part of my character and destiny, which then becomes part of my leadership trait using 100% of my brain. So that's the key behind it. Here's another very exciting truth for you, okay? That we use some part, okay, we use the whole brain. Of course, absolutely, brilliantly said, Mr. Salim Naqvi. God bless you for that, right? We use the whole brain. Now, here's the second very, very interesting insight about this God-given brain. We not only have a brain, which is so good, but it is here, listen to me carefully, as of 13th May 2020, you and I possess this amazing God-given brain, which is faster and smarter than the fastest, smartest supercomputer in the world. You can quote me on this. You can say this crazy professor taught me that this brain is faster and smarter. I'm going to validate that with some very interesting information. The fastest, smartest supercomputer in the world has 600 billion networks. And that's the reason it's the fastest, smartest supercomputer in the world. Now, you and I possess this amazing God-given brain, which has a minimum of 80 to 100 billion neurons, which, listen carefully, connect with each other on a second-to-second basis, and hold your breath, create 1.4 trillion neural connections. So by the time I finish the sentence, a few trillion connections have already passed across among all our community members. Which means what? What is 1.4 trillion connections? That's more potential connections than atoms in the universe. So that's the awesome brain that we have. Why is it important? As a leader, many times you and I might be perplexed and confronted with all kinds of uncertain scenarios, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But the big news is that you need to know you and I possess this absolutely amazing brain that can completely transform your perspective. And I'll give you the second very, very interesting thing. Okay, so before that, a short 30-second course on the brain. Now, number one is the automatic brain. For easy understanding, call it the auto brain or autopilot. That's your reptilian brain. And this reptilian brain is primarily responsible for everything that happens. You surviving, you living, all that is part of the automatic brain. We don't do it. Your breathing, your sensory organs, everything is controlled by the reptilian brain. But please note something there. It is also primed for two critical factors, which is about our survival, which is about our fear. Now, you will have an answer why the media feeds us negative news almost all the time. The reason is it feeds on a survival instinct and it feeds on a fear as a motivator, right? So that's a reptilian brain. The second brain is the emotional brain. That's your mammalian brain, as we call it, which focuses on seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. So it's all about the feelings, warm, fuzzy, good, love, compassion, empathy, so on and so forth. And the third brain typically is our rational thinking brain. So it's an interplay between our decisions, are an interplay between the rational and the emotional brain, and our perspective taking is a combination of the reptilian, mammalian, and the rational brain. Right. So that's probably an interesting way to look at this. My second big important information is, or insight, is about the power of community. Now imagine we are about 100 plus sitting and watching this webinar, discussing, looking at our power. Now imagine if each one of us come together in terms of our ideas, in terms of common solutions. Believe me, that's going to have a tremendous impact on how we look at things for the future. Let me validate this. Now, we not only have survived as a species, all of humanity, we have actually thrived. My next question to you, would somebody have a definition of what you understand or what you think the word thrive denotes? What does thrive mean to you? Thrive is a very powerful word, by the way. What does it mean? Thriving. Anybody? Who wants to attempt on the chat? Okay. Thriving. Okay. Thriving is flourishing. Thriving is getting better and better. Thriving is also prospering. That's right. Flourish, prosper, getting better and better. Now here's the question to you. How do you think we as a species have thrived? How do you think we have thrived? Many of you have said it. Spearheading, reproduction, growing, flourishing. Superb. Okay. How do you think we have thrived? What do you think is the reason behind human thriving? Empowerment, somebody says. Excellent. What else? Working towards prosperity. Okay. Interesting. What else? I'm still not getting the answer that I'm looking at. And you'll be surprised. You'll be pleasantly surprised. And I'll also give you the evidence just like. Super. Somebody said it. So Mr. Salim Naik said teamwork. Perfect. Perfect. Resilience, yes. Adaptability, yes. Knowledge, yes. Innovation, yes. All of it. But what Mr. Salim said in terms of teamwork, I'd like to use the words C's. Collaboration, connectivity. Somebody says connectivity. Perfect. Okay. Collaboration, cooperation, synergy. Somebody else used another powerful word, busy bright. Absolutely. Community. Collaboration, cooperation, and creativity together create that remarkable community that we are. Now, you might have in your mind, somewhere down it says, then why are we fighting? Why are there wars across the world? And the reason why we are fighting is not because we are human, because as humans, we have the power to love. We have the power to be compassionate, and validate the statement in a moment now. We have the power to be compassionate. We have the power to empathize. I'll give you a very simple example. Many of you might be from the city of Dubai. Dubai, as you know, is home to 200 plus nationalities from all over the world. Notwithstanding the current social distancing norms, let's say we are walking one of the busy streets in Sheikh Zayed Road or Bar Dubai or Karama, any street. And as you're walking, you see a stranger fall on the road, fall on the street. What's your immediate reaction? It's a rhetoric question, by the way. Your immediate reaction is to go and pull that person up. Are you looking at what nationality he or she belongs to? Do you look at what religion they preach? Or do you look at what gender? Nothing. We are immediately, spontaneously hardwired to help that person. Psychologists have a name for it. It's called empathy. And empathy today is embedded in our brain called mirror neurons. It's a God-given talent which is biologically hardwired in each one of us. So it's just there. So why do we fight? We fight because of our narrow, parochial values and belief systems, which is personal, which is corrupted by traditions, culture, you name it. But by nature, human beings are prone to compassion, prone to love, and prone to empathize. So these are two critical things. And of course, Professor Stephen Klein. So in case you have time to read, which I presume we all have now, please check out on Professor Stephen Klein. He's an award-winning anthropologist and professor. His life mission has been to prove that our human mission has been to, completely help each other through altruism, which has made us human, which also helps us becoming better and better. There's plenty of evidence, but that's for another day. Right. I'm going to quickly run you through something very recent, as recent as 2 weeks back, when the World Economic Forum said, so what are those skills that leaders need in order to, manage the crisis and post the crisis? And they came with 6 critical intelligences as portrayed by the World Economic Forum, which, Shibu, if we are normal human beings, we will have empathy because it's biologically hardwired into us. There is some disturbing evidence that a few psychopaths, people who are mentally deranged, will not have empathy because they are the cruel types. But by and large, 90 to 95% of the human population will be born with empathy. Okay, so that's the right answer to that. So quickly, let me run you through these 6 intelligences. Contextual intelligence. What's happening around us in terms of economics, in terms of technologies, in terms of work from home, in terms of the future? So there are a lot of things that are happening around. How do I make sense of the context? How do I make sense of the external environment? So that's contextual sense making, looking at the awareness, looking at the situation, making judgments based on that, and then responding to it and adapting to it, which is a skill you can learn. It's an intelligence like any intelligence. It's a skill you can learn. Contextual intelligence. The more you look at the right things, the more you train yourself on critical thinking, the more you look at things for what they are rather than what they appear to be, then you're developing your skills on contextual intelligence. Extremely critical, lest you make the wrong decisions, the wrong perceptions, and the wrong conclusions. The second one is so critical, ethical and moral intelligence. Let me validate this with a very simple example. One of the things that many countries were looking at, how do we confront the COVID crisis? At the beginning of the COVID crisis in the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister, decided, Boris Johnson decided that we should allow it to happen and create herd immunity. I'm not an epidemiologist or a virologist, so I'm not an expert whether it works or doesn't work. But the decision taken was to, allow people to, imbibe herd immunity. There was a very senior doctor, medical doctor and a virologist who said that would be a very, very wrong decision, that we should have complete lockdown. Fair enough. That's a very, knowledgeable professional who says that. That's very interesting. Now, listen, I think last week, if not 1 week back, what happened was this person, this doctor, I don't want to mention names, was forced to resign his position as one of the chief virologists from the UK government, because this man who proposed and argued for total social distancing was one of the first people to break that. And in a very a crude manner, he had an illicit relationship with a married woman. Many of you may know the story when I relate to it. I don't want to mention names. And he was forced to resign. So that's moral intelligence. That is ethical intelligence. You need to have the right kind of perspective when you take a decision. How will it impact my community? How will it impact my employees? How will it employ the larger community? There was recent news this morning that some people are using these PPE kits to smuggle drugs. That is unethical. So there are many of these moral and ethical challenges that will confront us as leaders. We have to be extremely careful about it. Now, this is a word that you must have heard very often, social intelligence, emotional intelligence. As I told you, the good news is that empathy and mirror neurons are embedded biologically in each one of us. So just start practicing it. Start with self-compassion. Start with having compassion for our family members. Start with compassion for our colleagues, for our compatriots. What is empathy in very simple words? Feeling with the other person. What if it was me? What if it was my mother? What if it was my sister? What if it was my wife, my child, my daughter, my son? So that empathy is something that you can practice. Again, as science tells us, these are intelligences that we can practice. So social and emotional intelligence, again, very critical, not just for survival, but for thriving. Generative intelligence is a nice word for innovation. It's about generating ideas. Generating ideas, and believe me, I told you the awesome part of the human brain. Now combine that with people. A few days back, I had the privilege of being part of the innovation think tank for a large government organization. And the kind of ideas that came out, how do we use these existing resources which do not have any utility at the moment? And people started breaking down into groups and then coming back with absolutely amazing ideas, ideas which we would not have even thought about under normal circumstances. Here's another very interesting thing. We all have a God-given brain which has a right side and a left side. The left side is supposed to be the analytical part of the brain, and the right side is supposed to be the creative part of the brain. We condemn ourselves by saying, I am a creative person, I can't do numbers. I am a numbers person, I don't think creativity is in my realm. Here's the good news. All of us are capable of using the whole brain. In fact, 21st century leadership is all about whole brain thinking, whole brain decision making, and whole brain applications. So generative intelligence is not just the purview or private property of a bunch of innovators and creative artists. Everybody can develop it as long as you put your heart and soul into preparing it. The next one is technology intelligence. I don't think it needs any elaboration. We all need to become digitally savvy. And the best teachers are our kids at home, our youngsters at offices. So we need to do reverse mentoring, to learn those technologies. Digital intelligence, digital transformation, digital disruptions. That's going to be the norm. How many of us were familiar with running a webinar, running a seminar in a web platform like Webinar X? And we're doing it today. I'm talking to hundreds of people. You're listening to me. We are interacting, So technology today is a very big intelligence. And last but not the least is transformational intelligence. What is transformational intelligence? The decisions that we take today will transform the future of the community. And the best example I can think of, I've been blessed to be in Dubai for the last 24 years. And what I've seen, I've worked very closely, as I said, with many, senior level government entities and professionals, is the vision. 2008, if you recall, some of you may have been here, they wrote us off. They wrote Dubai off and said, that's the end of it. And in 2012, when we bidded for, the Expo 2020, we were there with all the infrastructure, everything, transformational intelligence, decisions. And today, if you see the way Dubai and UAE government, thank and bless the rulers of this nation, the way they are looking at, I was sharing it with Dr. Nizami also, the right signals that they're sending, because, a lot of human behavior is also about sentiments, about psychology. So as a result, you would find that we need to send the right signals which can transform the future of the community. So again, I repeat, first one is contextual intelligence. The second one is ethical and moral intelligence. Third one is social and emotional intelligence. The fourth one is technical intelligence. Fifth one is generative intelligence. And the sixth one is transformational intelligence. Now, we're going to our second poll, and I'm going to play that across for you. I want your opinion. I have some ideas, but I want your respected opinions in terms of what you think is going to be, or how fast do you think? It's an extension of the question that we asked earlier, but this is more specific. From 1 to 3 months to 1 year and later. So let me quickly run you through the second poll. Okay, and there you go. Take a few seconds and then answer. Will it be 1 to 3 months, which is from May to May, June, July, 3 to 6 months, 6 months to 1 year? We have some very interesting answers coming out here. We'll take a few more seconds. Excellent. So a very small percentage says immediate. 1 to 3 months. Let us do what we're doing right now, staying safe at home and doing the right things, preparing ourselves. A large percentage, 22% say it will be 3 to 6 months, and 47% say it will be 6 months to a year. In fact, the largest is about 40, and very late, 1 year and above, which seems to be the business person's perspective. Respect that opinion. And so a large percentage, we say 40% highest, which is good, 6 months to a year, and then followed by 1 year and above, 34%, which I think is again very practical, and then 3 to 6 months. We hope and pray that things happen faster than we have polled. Excellent. So let me move on. Thank you once again for enthusiastic participation. And I'm moving to now the meat of the matter. So how do I use these 6 intelligences, my knowledge of the human brain, the power of the human community, to create a great future for me, my family, and my community, and to the world at large? Right. Now, there could be 3 kinds of reactions in the current crisis. We call it the mindset. Some of us could be on one end of the spectrum, totally unempathetic. Somebody asked me that question, all right? I can be overly enthusiastic, which is called rational, exuberance, which is wrong. Irrational exuberance, which is overtly optimistic. And I downplay the situation. Nothing is going to happen. We heard some very, very strange occurrences across the world where people violate the social distancing norms and get into trouble. That's underreacting. The other extreme is overreacting. Constant high threat. You must be facing these characters around, either at home or in the office, create panic for others, and catastrophize everything. Tomorrow is doomsday. And here's the good or bad news, depending on how you look at it. Our brains are hardwired. If you're on one extreme, you will be completely optimistic and not bother about the consequences. If you're totally on the other side, catastrophize, you will only see the negative news and catastrophize continuously. I think the most optimal one, which I would recommend, is the adaptive mode, which is in this middle of the storm, we need to maintain calm. And I'll give you some tips how we can do that. Not only do we maintain calm, we need to help others be calm and focused. Now, you could have kids sitting at home and they might ask you, Papa, when do you think school's going to happen? Mama, when do you think you're going to go to office again? And you can't panic. You can't catastrophize. I don't know, and you can't catastrophize. You have to help others be calm. And I'll give you some scientific tips how we can do that. Last but not the least, but very important, is you need to get into the right mindset. Mindset here is used because we very loosely use this term mindset. I'm using it in a strictly scientific perspective. I will tell you what mindset is, and I will also tell you what kind of a mindset you need to have. I'll give you some tips on how you can, develop that right and appropriate mindset. Now let's move on to some good news. So when I'm facing this crisis, when you're facing this challenging, catastrophic situation, the one thing you can learn from war is something called the Stockdale paradox. Stockdale paradox comes from Commander Stockdale, who was a US commander, military commander during Vietnam War, and he was caught by the Vietnamese military. He was imprisoned and he was kept inside. But by God's grace, the guy came out. Commander Stockdale came out, and when he came out, he was asked, what were the thoughts that ran in your mind when you were imprisoned? Because when you're a military prisoner of war, you don't know whether you'll be killed, whether you'll be murdered, whether you'll be punished, or hopefully you'll be released. He said that eventually he had a strong belief, the power of human belief. This is scientifically validated. I don't have time to talk about it in detail, but you'll have to take it as scientific validation. The belief that he could go back and he could do stuff which will help him to actually believe that he will come out of that imprisonment. Of course, see the second portion, with the deep acceptance of the current reality. It's harsh, it's current, but I have strong belief, which is what reflected in the first optimism poll that we did. A large percentage of us believe eventually we will succeed. And that, I think, is the hope that I would like each one of you listening to me to have in your mind, that eventually we will succeed, not just as individuals, but as communities. Not just as individual families and communities, but as a global community. Here's my second important, and this is scientific. So if you're making notes, you can make a note of it and do more research. The second one is called logotherapy, which was popularized by a psychiatrist called Viktor Frankl. Now, he was a prisoner of war during the Nazi, incursion, and he was in a Nazi concentration camp in the 1940s. And he, being a psychologist and a trained psychologist at that, created a very interesting therapy called logotherapy. Logo means meaning, therapy is treatment. So what he was looking at is, rather than brood over his current condition of imprisonment and persecution and probably death, he looked at the purpose of his life. He said, I'm a trained psychologist. My larger purpose is to serve the community of my clients and patients. So I need to have that. And today it is an accepted psychological and psychiatric practice called logotherapy. In fact, one of the greatest books, largest selling books, is Viktor Frankl's book called Logotherapy. And it's a landmark bestseller. If you have time, please find time to read that book, because it will transform your perspectives on life. Because all of us have a God-given purpose, a God-given meaning for which we exist. And once you're clear about it, you can do that. Again, there's plenty of research and scientific evidence on this, but more on that on another day. And this is what he so profoundly said. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves, right? So belief, faith, all of this come together when you combine that with the power of purpose. And I'll tell you about something called reflection. In this moment, you reflect, okay, and say what happens, right? So when we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves, okay? So there is a power in understanding the purpose and the meaning of our lives. It's not just to be wasted, but it has a much deeper significance. When this hit us, we were in shock. So that was the pandemic panic, if I may use the word. And as we go through on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, moving on to 3 to 4 months, there's a lot of pain. Pain in terms of health, pain in terms of concern and health concerns for us and for our loved ones, pain in terms of the financial challenges that some of us might be going through, pain in terms of an uncertain future. But please remember that at the end of the shock and the pain, we need to move towards rehabilitation, and I'll tell you how that happens. So we need to now change our perspectives. We have an awesome brain. We have the power of the community, and we need to change at scale, which means we need to up our game in these uncertain, challenging times. Number one is our priorities. Of course, at the moment, the health of our loved ones, health of our stakeholders would be priority number one. We need to take care of that, which means social distancing, following all the norms, following government directions, being very clear and careful about it. Of course, finances would be the next priority, future businesses, future plans would be another priority, so on and so forth. Now that is linked to a set of habits that we can develop, and I'm going to give you a very simple, actionable, system in terms of having a set of processes, and also I'll link it with what we call habits. Okay, the science of habits, and let me tell you how it works. It all starts inside your brain. Each day, when we start the day, we all have thoughts. Okay, oh my God, it's going to be how optimistic. Okay, very optimistic. Okay, Arian's put that across for us. Brilliant. You can also put the next one also on chat, Arian. Thank you very much. That's from the CO Club. You can see that later. Okay, so it all starts with our thoughts. Our thoughts. Okay, every single day you can have a thought. Okay, a thought which says, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen today. Or you can say, wow, thank you, Lord, for another amazing day. Thank you for giving me life in a world of uncertainty, right? So it's a perspective you take. These thoughts translate into words. You articulate those words either internally or you articulate them vocally to your friends, family, stakeholders. So what's your thoughts? They become your words. What's your words? They become your actions. So every day, an action that you take is based on the words which are triggered from your thought. This is science, hardcore science. I'll give you the source also. Watch your actions, because these actions will become habits. Watch your habits, because your habits will become your behavior and your character. Watch your character becomes your destiny. For those of you who are interested, you might want to know the psychiatrist who won a Nobel Prize for telling us this is Eric Kandel. Eric Kandel is spelled as ERIC KANDEL. Okay, and you can certainly Google and find out what he says about it. Thoughts change the structure of the brain, and later I'll validate it with the science of neuroplasticity. So be very conscious and careful about what you think on a minute-to-minute basis. Okay, you have to be very careful. Finding your focus. Okay, so as I said, is it health? Is it health of my loved ones? Is it health of people who are abroad, people who are my family and community abroad, my stakeholders? What about finances? What about various other priorities? Find your focus. Sometimes you would obviously be torn away between these two factors. If you recall, the emotional brain is bothered about avoiding pain and going towards rewards. So can I find a way by which I can do it? I'll give you a simple example. We, like all of you, are in lockdown. We have 400 plus employees across our 4 campuses in Dubai, Singapore, Sydney, and Mumbai. Our president did something. So we were also going through the same pain, shock, and rehabilitation. One day we got a very interesting, of course, we were talking about strategies, future plans, so on and so forth, taking stock of the current situation. But suddenly one day we got a very interesting message. Okay. The message was, he was in his, casuals at home, and he was, playing a musical instrument, and he said, this is what I'm doing at home, guys, so tell us what you're doing. And for a couple of days, everybody was very skeptical. What is the president telling us this? And people didn't want to answer that question. But little by little, the second day, you had 1 or 2 people, bold enough to say, I'm trying new cooking recipes. I'm trying to teach my kids music. I'm trying to teach them a language. I'm learning this. And believe me, within a week, we had hundreds of responses from all of us. So what he did was he shifted our focus towards rewards. Now, rewards need not always be only monetary. It's happiness. It is a feeling of community. It's a feeling of together. And every meeting we starts with, we are in it together. We end the meeting by saying, we are in it together. And if all goes well, in a couple of days, we're going to sing, in each of our homes, we're going to sing with our family members. Don't worry, be happy. Some of us are going to dance, some of us are going to sing. But the idea is we are moving away from the threat towards rewards. We can look at various ways by which you can do it. I'm just giving one example, because what happened, the threat is in the broader environment. What's going to happen to the world? IMF is saying this. World Economic Forum is saying this. The World Health Organization is saying this. And then in the neighborhood, okay, my neighborhood has been quarantined. If you go to places like countries like India, entire neighborhoods are quarantined when there is a case of, the COVID-19. And at the basic level, it comes upon you, your family, and your immediate circumstances. So these threats could, challenge us, but how do we work together? So focus on your priorities, understand what's important, and then get together as communities. COVID has also made us come together as families, come together as communities, with social distancing, of course, right? So that is helping us. And focusing together, trying to find common solutions for common challenges. Trust me, folks, there is so much power in the power of community, okay? And when you do that, you rally as a team, and your thinking gets optimized because everybody comes out with brilliant ideas, and build on the right practices. Try to have, as at a corporate level, try to have as many digital meetings as possible. Don't overdo it, don't overkill it, but at least, twice a week, once a week, you meet, follow up, bring that sense of camaraderie. It's not just about targets, it's not about what you're going to do in this precarious situation. Build that sense of belongingness, community, and positivity in all your team members, and by then we will do it. See, there's no larger emphasis, but empathize, and empathize. Focus on shared goals. We are in it together. We built this together as an entity. Let us continue to confront it together, face it together, and then look for a future together, right? And encourage regular meetings, formal, casual, all kinds. I told you, one day have a nice dance session. My daughter's university, they had a song carnival where they all sang different portions, brought it together, meshed it, and then brought it out to everybody to watch and enjoy. And then there are formal meetings that we can do through various platforms. At the end of the day, you may also need to look at delivering the essentials. The essentials are all about what are we going to do right now? How are we going to do it? And what do we do in terms of these crises? Okay, so prioritize, get resourceful, as I said, execute faster. Trust me, folks, we may not understand the power of people and power of brains together, but once you start getting resourceful and push your people, magic happens. It's the magic of human power, human spirit, and later I'll introduce you to another concept called resilience. So it's time to activate what scientists call your growth mindset. Okay, your growth mindset is based on cutting-edge research done by Stanford professor. Her name is Carol Dweck. For those of you who can see the slide, that's Carol Dweck. She has spent a good part of 35 years identifying that all of us, all humanity, can be broadly classified as fixed mindset or growth mindset people. The simplest thing you can do after the session is to visit Carol Dweck's website or go to Mindset website. There's a 15-minute free questionnaire and you could get two outcomes. One outcome is a fixed mindset, which means you're a person who avoids failures. You always desire to look smart. You avoid challenges. You stick to what you know. And for you, feedback and criticism is personal and you don't want to change or improve. That's a fixed mindset. On the other side, if you're a growth mindset person, that's what the questionnaire says. You desire continuous learning, confront uncertainties, embrace challenges, never afraid to fall and get up and learn from that, put lots of efforts to learn, and feedback is all about your current capabilities. Now, the good news is that, God forbid you got a fixed mindset, no worries. You can certainly transform. I'll give you a science behind how you transform through neuroplasticity. You can move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. It's very simple. Some of our brains on the other side, the darker side, I won't do it. I can't do it because I'm not good at that, so I won't do it. I can't do it. Then slowly we're saying, I want to do it. I want to do math. I want to be creative. How do I do it? So there's a curiosity, there's a question, and then I will try to do it. You practice, you start practicing. I can do it. I will do it. And then, yes, I did it. Okay? So that's the advantage of moving from a fixed mindset on my left side to a growth mindset on my right side. So finding your focus, focusing together, and delivering the essentials. Here's my simple formula. It's the science behind habits based on valid research across the world. 20, 21, 65, 90. Any new habit that you want to learn. You want to learn how to do math better? Start with doing it for 20 minutes. You want to be creative as a painter? Start doing it for 20 minutes every single day. And then 21 days, you continue doing the same thing again and again, preferably at the same time. So if you're planning to do gymming and you decide to do it, say, between 11 o'clock and 12 noon, 11 to 11:20 rather, keep doing it on the same day, same time, every single day for 21 days. That starts a habit. In other words, it begins a habit. Then you continue from the 21 days to 65 days, again doing the same thing pretty much on the same timing. And then you continue it for 90 days. After 90 days, you don't need to do anything. It becomes part of you. It becomes part of your habit, becomes part of your behavior, becomes part of your character. It becomes part of your destiny. That's the science of habits. Very easy. Start today. One good habit or many. Now we move on to the third and final poll. And I would like you to, again, participate in the poll. This is about the leadership competencies that we need to have. And then we'll see what polls we have. Right. There are 5 options here. Number 1 is authenticity and transparency. Number 2 is emotional intelligence. Number 3 is critical execution, which is getting work done. Number 4 is communication. Number 5 is all of the above. So I want your answers quickly. There's a few answers that have come up. Any more? I'll give another few seconds. Okay. You all seem to be okay. Some of us say Emotional intelligence, that's 5%. Great. Some of us say critical execution, which is 3%. Some of us say communication, which is 3%. But a large percentage say all of the above, okay, which is the right answer. Yeah, some of us say 5% is saying authenticity and transparency. But the right answer is all of the above. It's not this over the other. You need each of them in equal and good measure. So again, the CEO Club team will give you the results in a moment, but I'm moving on to the rest of my slideshow. I don't know how many of you have heard about this remarkable guy called Ernest Shackleton. Now, Ernest Shackleton this story goes back 100 years plus. This was in the 20th century, 1914 to be more precise. Ernest Shackleton wanted to do something unthinkable. He wanted to create history by inviting a bunch of adventurers like him to go on a historic expedition to the Antarctic. Why historic? Because that was the first time they wanted to do it. And in the first time, they thought that they could create history by being the first team on the planet to reach, Antarctica. But guess what? Ironically, they lost out because their ship wrecked. It hit a huge ice block and it crushed the ship. And as a result, the ship was wrecked. And in the process, they lost out on the mission. They couldn't obviously go for completing the mission on time. They were stuck in the island. Now, here's where Ernest Shackleton becomes a hero, because what he did was to look at the priorities, focus on the well-being and welfare of the people. He abandoned his mission to, reach Antarctic because somebody else had done it. But in the process, 634 days, he looked at, how does he ensure the safety and health of the 27 crew members. And today it's a historical story. There are documentaries so you can watch it. It's absolutely amazing, that he was able to do that because of his focus and priorities and work together as a community. Today he's touted as a hero, not because he reached Antarctic first, because he did not, but because he was able to actually go and take care of his people, right? So that's the big lesson for us, and I think that's a lesson for us. Now, how do we look at it? I'm going to give you 5 quick thoughts on how we can, as leaders, handle this challenging situation as leaders and as community. Okay, so let me give you a few thoughts. Number 1 is the aspect of credible information. You're a leader, you have to share information with people. And that information has to reach out in the right manner, from the right sources, and in the right tone and right mode. Very, very critical. Because a lot of times we could get carried away by information which may not be right. And in the process, that could be very dangerous. Okay? So we have to be very careful doing that. Second one is, what kind of channels do we use to communicate this? Are we just talking to them over the telephone? Are we calling for community meetings and using digital platforms to share the information? Very critical. The kind of information that we use and how we communicate that. And here, very important is, the first one that we spoke about, leadership and leadership characteristics, authenticity and transparency. Because people are looking towards you as the leader for guidance, for information, for the right kind of information and the right kind of direction. So be very transparent, especially during a crisis. The third one is, tell people what you're doing about the crisis. Be very transparent about it. One of the things that a lot of organizations will go through is, how do we manage cash flows? How do we manage revenues? How do we manage costs? Do we take salary cuts? Do we have to ask certain people to leave? How do you do that? So plan that, talk to people. People will come back with ideas. They'll tell you, Let's not, terminate people. Maybe all of us collectively can take a percentage cut. So think of all those different things and tell people what decisions you're taking, especially during the crisis. And again, equally important, as a leader, you have to be available. You have to be, visible. You have to show your face to your people. Be there. It's being present and being available. Very, very critical, especially when people are looking for directions. And last but not the least, again, a couple more are there, is to identify what resources we have and how can these resources be used. Please remember, the greatest resource you have are your people. So how do I use these people to come out? Empower them. Give them, the power to think out of the box. They may be at a mid-level or even at a very junior level. Don't underestimate. Tell them, what do you think we can do in this, crisis? And boy, you'll get some absolutely amazing ideas from the least expected quarters. I don't have time. Otherwise, I'll share some beautiful stories on how people can do it. Again, empathy, emotions, compassion, love, relationships are extremely critical. We have to tell people we are in it together, and together we will swim ashore. We'll come out of this, successfully. So keep that relationship context and compassion and empathy. And last but not the least, maintaining a perspective. What is this perspective? I'm going to show you a couple of things which will make you understand what it is. How do I make sense of this data? This is data as of yesterday, last night, 10 o'clock. Okay. So total cases, unfortunately, in the world is 4.8 million. It's nearly, it's going towards the 5 million mark. But have any of us bothered to look at what is the recovery rate? It's more than 35%, 1.46 million and going ahead. We are now looking at the threshold of finding a vaccine. We are looking at combining different combination treatments, and the deaths. God bless the souls. We pray that they rest in peace. It's very unfortunate, but it's a matter of perspective. 6.8%. In many places, it's flattening. Many places, the deaths are coming down, and we need to keep this in perspective whenever we look at stuff. I'm going to show you something which the women participants in this audience are going to love. Okay, I don't have time to ask you a question, but you may want to attempt. Maybe you can attempt. What is unique about these 7 women? Let me see if somebody gets this right. Any answers? Quiz? Anything unique about these 7 women? Well, if you're telling them they are heads of the countries, that's a given. So I'm not going to take that as an answer. You have any other answers? Okay, communication, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yes. Head of state, yes, sir. They're all heads of states. Confident, yes. Managed to control COVID. Thank you very much, Shebin. Well said. Okay. If you look at these countries, and you can go do your own homework, they're all heads, and they seem to be pretty good. Yeah, somebody else said it. Lama Makaram says it. Yes, empathy. Probably it's because they're empathy, because they're passionate. Fantastic stuff. Okay, great stuff. Absolutely. They're transparent. Maybe there's a big lesson for us. Maybe we need more women leaders in positions of power. I'm serious when I say this, okay? Because these people seem to have got it better than most others. With due respect to the male leaders, but somewhere these people are getting it. Maybe it's empathy. Maybe it's because they're moms. Maybe they're wives. They're better at empathy. Maybe they're better at, yeah, New Zealand managed well. Not only New Zealand, all these people, you can go do your homework. Okay, so that's the perspective. Okay, so we need to be clear on what information we get and what inference we get from those questions. Right. Super. So a lot of you answered it. Thank you very much for that enthusiastic participation. My final few thoughts, but very, very powerful. Number one, in the middle of this crisis, rather than cry over it, yeah, Shubhu says Kerala's health minister, she's also a lady. That's right. Good. Reflection. You need to reflect, okay? You need to reflect. What is reflection? Rather than complain and groan and be pessimistic and look at all the negative information, pause for a minute. If you're a spiritual person like me, I was asking God, what are you trying to teach us from this? What is a big lesson? And God teaches you so many amazing lessons during these moments of reflection, because that's the wisdom He has given us. You need to awaken that inner wisdom by connecting spiritually. You can do mindfulness, which is throwing away the technology contraption for a few minutes and then being present, okay, and then reflecting on the moment. There's some profound truths that come out of these moments of reflection. This is also a time when you can respite, take rest. Don't look at it as a punishment. Look at it as a moment to take rest. Or you would say, I wish I could have gone to Europe for my holidays. I wish I had gone to, my home country for holidays. No mind. Wherever you are, make the best use of it and take rest. We need some time out. Many of us, like me, would have been extremely overly busy doing mundane stuff or regular stuff. Here's a time to take a little bit of pause and take rest and rethink. This is powerful, guys. I want you to listen very carefully for the next few slides. Rethink is rethinking your thought processes. You remember we spoke about thoughts, words, actions, habits, character, and destiny. Now keep this in mind. I'm telling you, you can rethink. And before I introduce you to the power of rethinking, I'm going to give you two scientific studies. This was done by Dr. Martin Seligman, University of Pennsylvania. He did a very, rather, I would say, painful study, which was with dogs. So he had dogs, he put them in cages, and he had the door, unlocked. So he would give the dog a shock. The moment the dog gets a shock, he would spring to action and try to run away from the door. He would push the door open and run away from the cage. He would do that again and again and again, and the dog would try to run away. Every time he would run away. Now version 2 of the experiment. He closes and locks up the door, the cage door, and now he gives a shock. The dog attempts to run and then, faces a situation where he can't move away from the door because the door is locked. Again, he gives a shock. The dog tries to run away. A series of such shocks, attempting to run away, but then finding that the door is locked. The dog resigns to his fate and he says, I'm helpless. In other words, he has learned helplessness. He says, my situation is a no-go situation and I can't move further. Now, version 3 of the experiment, when the door is open, the shock is given, the dog has unfortunately learned helplessness. He will not move away from the cage. Now, thankfully, Dr. Seligman had a wonderful daughter, and she asked a very pertinent question. She said, Papa, if we can learn helplessness, can we learn optimism? And there's plenty of study that you can actually learn optimism. That's a whole new study by itself, a whole new science by itself. God willing, another day, I'll spend time how you can actually rewire your brain on optimism. But I will give you the science behind it in a snapshot, which is the power of neuroplasticity. I'm going to play a video now, which will tell you in 2 minutes what neuroplasticity means and how neuroplasticity can actually help each one of us rewire our brains, rethink our priorities, and move from pessimism to optimism, from despair to hope, and from failure to faith.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all...
Okay, so now that we have reflected, we have taken that rest or respite, and we have started rethinking with the power of neuroplasticity, it's time to reset our priorities and look with hope for a future that's going to be better. Here's my other scientific evidence for that. All human beings, normal, average, good human beings, would go through what we call a period of pain, a period of tragedy, and then we bounce back. The bouncing back, scientists and psychiatrists call, is resilience. Resilience is the ability of the human brain and the human system to bounce back. We do that as communities, we do that as individuals, we do that as countries. You'll see us coming back. Resilience is part of our nature. So which means there's a certain element of flexibility and planning built into it. That we have the ability to withstand shocks. We have the power to adapt to change, because that's how we have survived and thrived. We'll pursue our goals through focus and community. We will anticipate risks, and we will protect our weak spots. Now that results in, here's the latest scientific breakthrough. Many of you may have heard of something called post-trauma stress disorder, or PSTD. Now, PTSD used to be a very common phenomena, especially for battle-wearied soldiers. The opposite of that is post-trauma growth. In fact, the good news is that there's a large percentage of our population that can be encouraged to move from trauma and stress to growth. Again, there's plenty of evidence. What it allows us through, changing our thoughts and rewiring our brains, and through logotherapy and looking at the power of meaning, we get a better appreciation of life. We have more meaningful, closer relationships, look at an abundant plethora of new opportunities that builds our personal strength and definitely results in positive spiritual change. Here's the scientific evidence. Well-being is at a certain level. That's on your left extreme. And during a crisis like COVID, it dips to an all-time negative low. But here's the good news. Once you start moving towards development, moving towards growth, moving towards positivity, look at the kind of growth that takes place. This is a scientific statistic, by the way. Your post-traumatic growth is many times beyond your existing well-being. So that's the good news. And for further details, again, there's Professor Jim Rendon. You can read this latest New York Times best-selling book called The Upside, which will again give you more insights on how you can move from pain and shock to rehabilitation and growth. Right. Once you have done the reflection, the rest, the rethinking, and of course, moving towards resilience, it's time to resolve. What is resolve? Resolve is the ability to make strong, assertive, affirmative, constructive, and positive decisions. We say resolution. We resolve to do things, and it's time for us to reimagine. Reimagine our futures, reimagine our communities, reimagine our businesses. It may not be business as usual. Let's be clear on that. I'm not going to paint a rosy picture. Our business models will change. Our business priorities will change, but it's time for us to reimagine. And I want to leave you with these final thoughts with Beena Venkatraman. Beena Venkatraman, for those of us who may not know, was an advisor to the Obama administration. She's currently a professor at MIT. And this is what she says, that we need to have a long-term perspective. If you look at the near term, that's not going to help us, because that is very pessimistic. But an optimist will not only look at things with clarity, things with the right perspective, and then look through an optimist's telescope. So time for each one of us to refresh, restart, revise, and rethink. And time to relaunch. Relaunch is a very powerful word, because it's about rockets. Each one of us have the rockets in us, waiting to refuel, waiting to reignite, waiting to relaunch into new orbits of possibilities, new orbits of opportunities. And in the process, we definitely need to look at what I would like to call the ultimate virus, which needs to be killed from each one of us.
Are you scared yet? They say this thing, it kills your immune system, attacks your lungs, makes it hard to breathe, and it's spreading. Spreading like wildfire, causing havoc. Your friends and family are gonna get it, if they don't already have it. It's tragic, I tell you, madness. Scientists say old people get it worse, but most get it eventually. They say this is new, but no, this has been around for centuries. Look at history, it's just a different name, a different strain. And now there's no way to contain it. It affects the rich, poor, young, old, the unknown, the famous. It's dangerous. Everyone's on edge, locked inside of their homes nervously. Borders are closed, countries declare state of emergencies. Grocery stores are empty, nobody's praying in church. The world has gone to crap. No wonder toilet paper sold out first. The stock market crashed, thousands laid off work. Hand sanitizer is going for $1 million a squirt. You better not sneeze, cause no one's gonna say God bless you. They might even arrest you. I don't mean to stress you, but washing your hands obsessively in the restroom will not protect you. Friends, I'm not talking about coronavirus. Now this is a virus even more deadly. The F virus. You've seen it. It spreads every minute like an epidemic. It lives on surfaces, most commonly remote controls, TV screens, cellular phones. It makes you desperate. Doctors say every time you scroll down your feed, you get reinfected. It invades the brain, and when it mutates, it turns into hatred and blame. China did it, no Italy did, no Iran, no Spain. Oh, I didn't make it clear? The F virus, ladies and gentlemen, is fear. But don't be afraid. Despite what you hear or see on your TV, there is good news during this tragedy. To fight loneliness, people are performing concerts on their balconies. The UAE sent aid to Iran. Japan donated supplies to China for free. Written on them was a poem that said, "We are waves from the same sea." Listen to me, like every tragedy, we can let this destroy us, or we can use it to our benefit and repair relationships with our sisters and brothers, wipe away silly grudges, because when it's all said and done, all we ever really had in this world was each other. So yes, let's flatten the curve and expand our hearts. Let's social distance, boost our immune systems, be mindful of where we put our hands, but also where we put our attention. Be alert, not fearful, because the F virus is a pandemic easily transmitted. If you do contract it or exhibit symptoms, we recommend immediately dialing the hotline of a level-headed friend. If you are exposed through your TV, change the dang station. Decontaminate yourself through dance, laughter, and meditation. 2020 has been morbid. From Kobe to COVID, may we use these tragic moments to finally wake up to what's important. Right now, tell someone that you care for them. Yes, right now, tell them that you cherish them. If they are not in the same room, ring them up and tell them you will always be there for them. Because together is how we will rise above. The only vaccine for this F virus and every other virus is love.
So I think that message said it all. It's not about fear, it's about love. It's about doing it together, the part of community, and be sure we'll come out of this much better. So I want to end this by thanking each one of you for staying so long. We will take a few questions because we have some time. We have about 7-8 minutes. But I want to say, may God bless you to walk forever in faith, hope, and love. And I think we will come over this crisis with the power of human love and human compassion. And I'm willing to take those questions on chat. If you have any questions, please feel free.
I like to ask a question, Professor Christopher. That,
yes, sir.
We all are locked down. Let's say the entrepreneurs, the business owners, the staff, everybody working from home, and it's been over 2 months now. How you think you can keep yourself motivated, keep your staff motivated, keep your workers motivated, keep everybody motivated that there is a light at the end?
Great question. First is you need to be motivated first so that you convey the right message. When I say you, the leader, whoever is the leader, so you need to watch the right things. You need to hear the right things. Okay, so you have to have the perspective. So I'm seeing data. So if I'm only seeing the deaths, in fact, I congratulate the UAE government, which every day will tell us how many people have recovered, and then they will tell you how many people have been infected. So I think it's a question of how you put the message across, a matter of perspective. then please remember we have meaning, purpose. What's the purpose in life? Reflect on that. Look at the power of belief. Look at the power of optimism. Talk to people. Don't talk to pessimists. Don't talk to negative people, but talk to people who vibe with the same energy. And you have to encourage them. You have to tell them, first of all, you need to believe that this will happen. Stockdale paradox, that at the end of it, I'm seeing the light, end of the light at the end of the tunnel. We are seeing this. I mean, we live in Dubai. We are seeing these positive signs. Last week, the malls were open. Then today, tram has opened. Dubai's metro tram has opened up. We see in the news that Emirates flights have slowly started in a few areas. So you're sending signals. As leaders, we are supposed to send signals because people infer from those signals. Keeping ourselves motivated spiritually, prayer, meditation, mindfulness, reading the scriptures, right? So those can definitely help because spiritual intelligence will definitely hold us good in these moments of challenges. So all this put together, and of course, getting closer to the family. Right now, there are those memes which you watch on WhatsApp. It says, husband, wife fighting and all that. No, it's a great moment to come together as a community, as a family, to appreciate the nicer things in life, which very often we would have taken for granted in our busy schedules. COVID has put a stop to it. Look at all the good things that COVID has done to us. Our air has become much fresher. Abu Dhabi, there was a report 2-3 days back, that 42% improvement in the air quality of air in Abu Dhabi. I'm sure Dubai has similar statistics. But nature is coming back. The ozone layer, the depletion has come down dramatically. So there are a million good things that are happening around. See, it's also a question of what your eye sees. That's what I meant by the vision. That's what I meant by the perspective. Right? So there's so many things that are happening. There have been many pandemics before. I didn't show you that statistic. There's one which says 4.4 million, 5 million people dead. And every time there's a catastrophe, we will come out of it, in terms of coming better, coming bigger, coming smarter. Digital transformation, a lot of us were very reluctant to move to digital transformation. COVID has made that possible. There's no choice. In our field, for example, academia, there are many professors, with due respect to teachers if you're in the audience, who are very reluctant to actually, embrace technology. Because for the right reason, and I'm happy to, doing classroom teaching. Now, the moment you put them outside, there's no other choice. You're now measured, your KPI and KRI are measured on how good you are a digital teacher. So I can go on for the rest of the evening giving you 100 good things to do it. But any other questions, I'll be happy to take.
Yeah, I think, you answer all the questions. I think it was a great presentation. And I think all the participants, I'm sure, enjoyed the presentation of hour and 25 minutes, and I'm sure with your expertise and your input, I think it definitely is very valuable. And I'm sure participants took some great points from you. Yeah. And I like to thank you for taking your time and to participate and give your presentation. And I also like to thank all the participants that attended this webinar. This is what CEO Club is doing it. We bring in different subjects and topics, in our webinar, very different and very experts here. And all the idea is all about how to get over this crisis. This is all about crisis management. And I think today's webinar is also that Professor Christopher showed us that what things we can do. And definitely this is a time for yourself. This is a time for the family. This is a time for you to get ready and come better and improve an innovative way tomorrow, your business, your working environment, and anywhere in the world. So I think what we are facing here, whole world is facing, and I think it's not only how the UAE or this region, I think the whole world will change, and I think the whole world will have a lot of peace, happiness, and prosperity.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And one last thing, Dr. Tariq, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, CEO Club, for giving this opportunity. I have put a website on the chat for everybody to see. It's called www.goodnewsnetwork.org. So please carry that website with you. Please check them out. What is good about they've been there for the last 12 years. Many of us never bothered because we're very happy wallowing in negative news. But these guys have become extremely active, even during the COVID. There are hundreds of good things happening. Okay, so please subscribe to the website. It's free of cost. And then, you can talk about, you can see what are the good things happening around in the medical breakthroughs, in patient recovery, so on and so forth. So again, once again, good luck and God bless each one of you.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. Have a nice day. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. The webinar ended now. Thank you.